This podcast is a Radio Mike original production. Head to radiomike.com.au to find out more. 50 years after the final Harry Potter book, Harry Potter is now headmaster of Hogwarts, ready to usher in a brand new generation of witches and wizards. My name's Radio Mike, and I love Harry Potter. In fact, I love Harry Potter so much that when I was a kid, I wrote a series of 7 Harry Potter fan fiction novels. This is book 2 in that series. Welcome to Harry Potter and the Team Wizard Tournament. Hamoras, everyone. Welcome to Harry Potter and the Boys, Book 2, Harry Potter and the Team Wizard Tournament, a fan fiction podcast by me, Radio Mike. It's the longest podcast intro in Australia. And this week I'm joined by special guest, Charlie Clausen. Welcome to the show. Thank you for being here.
What was the second thing you said? Horus or something? What you said? Welcome, and I'm a whore. What was it?
I said hello, Hamoras.
What is Hamoras?
So, in Harry Potter, there's a spell called Alohomora, which is to unlock doors.
Okay.
And someone once wrote into this show and said, "Hey, you should start the show by saying hello, Hamoras." So I didn't call you a whore. I was just doing the traditional opener.
So hello. So you wave your wand at the door and you say hello, Hamoras, and it should open.
Alohomora, no rest.
Oh, all right. Hello, Hamora, and it should open. Yeah. Can you stand in front of your TV and go hello, and you get like a mid '80s British sitcom?
Well, I've talked about this on this show before. I don't think wizards have like our TV shows.
Right.
I don't think they watch like Seinfeld and stuff and go, oh, why don't they just use magic to fix this?
Aren't there books and you know, we'll get to this, but I am admittedly not very well versed in the Potterverse, but aren't there paintings and books like movies anyway? Like their paintings all move and talk. So TV is kind of redundant, right?
Exactly. And the paintings in Harry Potter are actually like essentially living characters. Like they can go into other paintings and visit other paintings, and like it seems like a living hell actually, because you're basically conscious all the time in painting form. You just always have to be a painting, so it's pretty bad.
And so like if I was to paint a picture of you, would that be you trapped in the painting or just a version of you? Would it have your consciousness, your memories?
Great question. It would have all my memories until that point, but it wouldn't be my consciousness. It'd be like a new version of me.
Right. Okay.
Forever locked to that painting.
That's still incredibly cruel. Like, I mean, if I, like just say, so, you know, Podcast Mike, he actually produces a podcast I do with Will Anderson called Tofop. And just say, you know, he hardballs us in negotiations for his next contract. And we acquiesce because we're weak. But then I'm like, I'm going to commission someone to paint like an awesomely lifelike Podcast Mike. And he's going to be just like, it's going to be a torture scene. It's going to be you strung from the ceilings over hot coals. Yep. Like I would have a version of you that would be eternally suffering, right?
That is true. Like that's not explored very much.
I wonder why.
You would think that would happen. So while I haven't had a new guest on the show for a while. So let's start out by me asking, what is your history with Harry Potter? From like knowing about it, seeing it, reading it, whatever your experience is, and what do you think of it generally?
My experience, I think I read the first book when they first came out. Like, is it sort of late 90s, early 2000s?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think
97, I think, was Philosopher's Stone.
I should say that like fantasy is not really my go when reading. Like I don't often go for like, I don't really like Lord of the Rings. I think I've read The Hobbit and maybe the first book of Lord of the Rings. And I remember reading the first book and thinking, I would have been in my early 20s and thinking, this feels very childish. I don't know if I will continue with this. And then I remember seeing the first film at the movies, and that sort of confirmed my initial impression is like, yeah, this is like kiddie stuff. It's like, oh, here's a mystery to solve and blah, blah, blah. So I was like, I don't really need to check this out. And then I'm not an idiot. I saw like the pop culture phenomenon take off, and people who I respect and who seem smarter and much more literate than me really loving these books. And, I'd listen.
Name those people. Name them.
Well, like I used to listen to Smodcast with Kevin Smith and Scott Mosier, and they did whole episodes on Harry Potter. Like they love the film, they love the books and they love the films. And Scott Mosier in particular, who's now like, he's a big shot director. He directed the Grinch animated movie and, he does And so but I remember him doing a really, he's a really smart, considered guy. And I remember him doing this long talk about just how brilliant the world building is with J.K. Rowling. And then they both waxed lyrical about just like her boundless imagination and the way the stories are able to mature. So I think I then dipped back into the movies around that one that everyone loves, the guy who directed Birdman, isn't it? Alfonso.
Yeah. Alfonso Cuarón,
Prisoner
of Azkaban.
Is that the third one?
Film.
Yeah, the Gary Oldman one. Don't remember anything about it. Just remember thinking, oh yeah, this is cool. Like it seems darker. And then that's it. I don't know anything beyond that point. Like do we have to do spoilers, or everyone who's listening, they know that
everyone's listening, we assume knows everything.
Okay, so I know, like I in the same way that you may never have seen the movie Casablanca, but you're aware of the famous scenes. Play it again, Sam. Like Gone with the Wind. Like, so I am aware of the big story beats in Harry Potter. Like I'm aware that Hermione and Rupert Grint end up. Not Rupert. Hang on, what's the character's name? Is it Rupert Grint?
Ron Weasley.
Oh shit! I thought Rupert Grint.
The character doesn't ultimately marry the actor from the movies, but
you got to admit though,
I know what you mean.
Like if you're coming up with a Harry Potter character, Rupert Grint, that's a pretty good one.
I agree.
So I reckon I know they end up together. Harry ends up marrying Rupert Ron's little sister. Is that right?
Yeah, that's correct. Ginny.
I know that he who shall not be named, Voldemort. Turns out that Harry's dad was a real bit of a prick to him. That Voldemort and Harry's mum. Is that not true?
Not quite. Not quite. You've got a version. So
no, Snape.
Snape.
Sorry.
Harry went to school with Snape, and I actually really like that story beat because it's kind of like this unfolding of Harry seeing his dad as this hero, as I guess every kid wants to see his dad as a hero, but then he, I guess, inadvertently discovers that his dad was actually a pretty nasty bully to Snape, which is kind of why Snape doesn't like Harry at all. If I said to you, Snape kills Dumbledore, are you aware of that?
No. Who's Dumbledore's the wizard.
Dumbledore's like the Gandalf, and like a popular meme in sort of like common vernacular is like, spoiler alert, Snape kills Dumbledore, because at the end of the sixth book, Professor Snape kills Dumbledore.
On purpose?
And that becomes sort of... Yeah, on
yeah. I know, like so I thought he's a sympathetic character by then, so it was...
No, he only becomes a sympathetic character by the last book, so there's lots going on there.
Right.
Is there anything about the franchise that doesn't make sense to you? Or like that you just always wondered?
I guess I wonder why it was so popular when there seems to be a glut. Like I'm not aware of, did Harry Potter lead the YA revolution when it came to fantasy? Because if you look at a bookstore now or you go online, it seems to be every second book is a... Percy Jackson or, a version of
Hunger Games.
Young kid from, a impoverished background finds out that he's actually got this superpower or whatever it is. I mean, I understand that storytelling 101. But I was just surprised that Harry Potter, crossed so many boundaries in terms of countries. It's printed in every country and mediums, but also... age groups. I guess it's maybe parents who read it to their kids have an affection for it. And, but I sort of missed the boat. I don't know if I just I was at the wrong age. I was early 20s when it started. So I wasn't quite young enough and I wasn't old enough to have kids myself. So I don't think I was the target demographic. I remember actually when this new Ghostbusters film, the trailer was released, and then and like a bunch of dudes from my Gen X, were getting excited. And then a bunch of like millennials from your generation were like, fucking Ghostbusters, go suck a dick. Like, it's a lame franchise. And apparently like the early reviews are it sucks and you suck. And I had to go online and say, hey, all you fuckhead millennials who are tearing down like all this Ghostbuster fandom, in 10 years time, 20 years time, people are going to think Harry Potter sucks too. Like, just because it's your generation's thing doesn't mean it's impervious to criticism.
Yeah, I think people they just announced like a Lord of the Rings TV series. Yeah. And they put out a trailer for that, and it's gotten really negative reception just from the trailer as well. And I think, generally I think that just happens now with all this franchise culture and reboot culture and stuff. People are just bound to be disappointed. Like the hard old school fans are always going to be disappointed, but also really excited about seeing their favorite characters again. And there's no doubt in my mind in 10 years' time, they'll probably reboot Harry Potter or do some new content piece with the franchise to keep churning out money from it.
Yeah, well, it's huge, right? Even those like Fabulous Beasts and Are They Here? And They're Over There, like they do pretty well, don't they? And there's theme parks and all that kind of shit, right? I mean, I guess the thing about it is that there's nothing in it. I can't really speak with any authority, but from an outsider's point of view, I'm like, what about this is so unique or new that to have warranted such love? But maybe that's the point. Maybe it sort of draws from all these different, it's kind of got the famous 5 mystery element with every book, and it's got some sort of Lord of the Rings fantasy, or Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. Fantastical creatures and stuff like that, but it also might just be that I just don't get it. That's not that I don't get it. I mean, look, we talked about the reunion, and I was saying to you how for someone who doesn't know anything about the books, I really enjoyed watching that reunion, and I liked hearing those actors talk about the experience of making the movie, and so I did kind of get curious. And I also had a 14-year-old sitting next to me with her auntie. I wasn't like I was just sitting there with a 14-year-old. Like, she was accompanied. But she was kind of filling me in on, she was my podcast mic. She was like, that's Malfoy, and, that's his dad, and, this is their relationship, and blah, blah, blah. One quick question that I have about the Potterverse. Yeah. Like, is it, with Slytherin, is it kind of like a Decepticons thing, or it's like, why the bad guys have such a bad name? Like, why would you want to go to Slytherin House? Isn't that like being accepted into the Nazi party?
It's funny because, I think the idea is that we really only get exposed to the bad Slytherins, but there are supposed to be good Slytherins in there. For example, there's this character called Horace Slughorn, and he is Harry's potions professor in the 6th book. And he was a Slytherin, and he's actually a good guy, but Voldemort wants to work with him because he's a potions master and what. Anyway, there are some good Slytherins is basically the shorthand way of saying it. But often a point that people bring up is, why do we have Slytherin at all? Why can't we just close Slytherin House and just have the 3 good houses? It's,
what you could do in 10 years, you're talking about the reboot, is you just Cobra Kai it. It's Slytherin House. You just do a limited series called Slytherin House, and it's from the perspective of Draco, and it's like, fuck this like entitled little shit with this birthmark and his know-it-all friends. Like, they're actually being put down upon, and there's some good stuff about Slytherin. I mean, but isn't their symbol a snake? And don't snakes have bad connotations in the Potterverse?
Well, their symbol is a snake, but that's because the guy who founded Slytherin, Salazar Slytherin, could talk to snakes. It was like, and that's why the snake is a bad symbol in Harry Potter, because Voldemort could also talk to snakes. It's a long thing. You kind of have to read the books to get it. Let's just put it that way.
A bit late, I'm on the pod now.
I would say Harry Potter kind of reminds me a little bit of Star Wars a lot in terms of being... Because you would have grown up with Star Wars, surely. That's like your generation's big thing. And it reminds me a lot of Star Wars, not only in the fact that it's about an orphan who, you know, joins essentially like who finds out he has magical abilities and gets trained by an old guy to use those abilities, but also just in the cultural impact and scope of success that it's had. Like, would you say, would you agree with that at all in you growing up with something like Star Wars?
Yeah. It's 100% has had as big a cultural impact as Star Wars. Like, it is definitely as beloved, and, you know, from a franchise point of view, like, makes money hand over fist. You just need to whack Harry Potter on top of it. It's endlessly kind of franchisable. And also, you know, we were saying earlier about it's storytelling 101. Like, you know, there's a poor kid from, you know, middle of nowhere who discovers he has this destiny that he needs to fulfill. His parents are important people. Yeah. So, yeah, no, I'd say Harry. Who'd win in a fight between Luke Skywalker and Harry Potter? That's the question.
Who do you think?
I don't know. Harry looks like a bit of a pussy. Like, I mean, can he fight? Like, does he? I mean, Luke's a trained, he's a space samurai. You know, he carries a laser sword.
I think Luke would win, to be honest, because Harry also wouldn't use any dark curses or anything. He's not that type of wizard.
Wizard. Really?
Yeah.
Never. Yeah. Like, even in a life or death situation, he would not invoke dark arts. That's actually a plot point of the books, because Harry will only use Expelliarmus, which is the disarming spell, and the Death Eaters, who are Voldemort's, essentially the Nazis, realize they can track Harry based on the fact that he only uses that spell, and that's how they always will know where Harry is. Sorry, Harry only uses one spell.
He's known for his signature spell, which is Expelliarmus. And he doesn't really use other magic very much.
But isn't he the boy wizard? Like,
I mean, he's the chosen one, but he just doesn't. He always uses Expelliarmus because it's like a non-lethal,
No, but he uses other spells like, you know, make us breakfast or something like that.
He uses day-to-day spells like that. Okay, but in combat, he'll only use that one spell.
Sure, I get you. So he's like the character, the Andrew Garfield character in Hacksaw Ridge, you know, the pacifist who goes into the battlefield and he'll save lives, he won't take lives.
Exactly, yeah, that's Harry.
Yeah, he's got Batman's code.
Yeah. The conceit of the podcast is obviously to read the Harry Potter fan fiction that I wrote when I was 13. We're currently on book 2, the Team Wizard Tournament.
How many fucking books are there,
7.
Mike?
There's 7.
Jesus. Well, so you wrote, how old were you when you wrote these?
About 13 to 14. I was a prolific writer when I was at high school.
Clearly.
So yeah. So we're here at chapter 7. I believe we left off in chapter 6. The boys from the title of the podcast had made it to Hogwarts. They're starting their second year and they're entering the Great Hall for the sorting ceremony. Okay. For the new first years at Hogwarts. So Charlie Clausen.
Wait. Do you need to give me a bit of background on who the boys are? Like, who are these characters? Just give me a rundown.
So the rundown of the book, essentially, the boys are just 6 boys who are just generic characters. Okay. Right. There's not really... They're pretty much all interchangeable and there's no real character development for any of the boys. They're kind of just a conduit for the rest of the chaos of the book to occur.
Okay. Yeah. All right, sure. Okay, so am I reading this?
Yeah, so start by reading the title and we'll go on from there.
Okay, chapter 7, Harry Potter and the Team Wizard Tournament. Chapter title, is this the chapter title or is this the...
This is the chapter title.
Which, and before I get to it, did this guy not play for the Western Bulldogs in the late 90s? Dimmy Dimmatina?
No,
there was a Bulldogs player called, I think his name was Paul Dimmatina. let me just look it up.
I'm going to Google. Okay,
I thought you did that on purpose.
You know how little I know about AFL, so... The chapter is called Dimmy Dimmatina, who is a character we have not yet met.
Paul Dimmatina is a former Australian rules footballer who represented the Western Bulldogs in the Australian Football League. Dimmatina is of Italian descent and the son of fruiterer Frank Dimmatina. You must have just subconsciously absorbed that. Dimmy Dimmatina.
Possibly. Dimmy Dimmatina.
Well, you are of Italian heritage, so it makes sense.
Yeah, it runs in my blood.
Okay, all right. As was tradition at Hogwarts, the first years all entered the Great Hall in the middle of the feast. after being forced to swim across the icy cold lake. Derrick was seated on his single table in the corner of the great hall, while the rest of the students sat on their actual house tables. Derrick was lonely because he was the only student sorted into the newest house. Expelled house, which was a makeshift house for students the Sorting Hat believed should be expelled. Fucking hell. Wow. The Sorting Hat's vindictive.
So last year, Derrick, that character, was sorted into expelled house. So he's the only student in that house and he has to sit all by himself.
Shouldn't it be
also,
Expellious house? You didn't really...
I guess so.
Come on, 13-year-old...
Harry Potter names.
Mike, you really didn't think that one through. Okay.
Also, I will say, fantastic read so far. You're really going the Stephen Fry audiobook route, and I really like it.
Okay. Lockie, seated at the Gryffindor table, made eyes across the room to Gemini Jones. He'd actually never spoken to Gemini, but the two were identical, which seemed strange to him. He made... Hang on. So he'd never spoken to Gemini, but the two were identical. So Lockie is identical to Gemini, or there's two Geminis?
Lockie and Gemini appeared identically, and it's speculated that they may be identical twins who were separated at birth.
But so, and Gemini's the clue, right? So, because Gemini means twin. Yeah. Right, okay.
Well, actually, someone else who listens to this pod said that, but I said to them, I don't think when I was 13 I was aware of that fact, so I don't think it's a clue.
I don't know, man. Dimmy Dimmatina, Gemini Jones, like, you say you're not aware of it. It sounds like you're doing an awful lot of thieving. He made a note to speak to Gemini sometime this year and get to know him. Gemini was a Slytherin, and it wasn't good for Gryffindors to talk to Slytherins. The students were all having a good time at the feast and speaking reasonably at a fair volume. Suddenly, Harry Potter stood up at the end of the table and began yelling way too excessively. That's not me misreading. He actually wrote excessively, which...
You have to take the author's word for what he wrote. You have to assume that this is how the author wanted his book to be read.
Yeah, that's right. Expelled house and excessively. So can I just ask, in this fan fiction, what year of Harry's schooling are we at?
Yeah, great. So this is 50 years after the end of Harry Potter. So Harry's
a teacher now.
He's the headmaster of Hogwarts.
Oh, shit.
And so is Hermione. She's one of the professors there as well. So they're all the kids from Harry's year are now teachers at Hogwarts.
Tell me, like, in this fan fiction, do you explore, like, Harry's, like, sad midlife crisis where it's like, you know, Ron's sister left him and he just goes home to a shitty, like, rental apartment where he eats, like, TV dinners and stuff. He's like, microwaveous dinnerus or something like that.
Well, Harry in this book is a bit sadistic, and I'm speculating that it's because of the trauma he faced from when he was a young boy that he is really living in a crisis now.
Okay, right.
So we see that a lot.
Harry Potter stood up at the end of the table and began to yell way too excessively. "Silence!" he yelled. Everyone was already completely quiet, but a number of teachers commented on how it was a little bit excessive. But a number of teachers commented on how it was a little bit excessive, misspelled, one S instead of two, for him to yell silence so loudly when the students were already being pretty respectful. Fucking hell, 13-year-old Mike is very, like, pedantic about protocol, right? Like, you've really just written, like, almost 2 paragraphs, or a paragraph at least, on how unnecessary it was. Were you coming home from a particularly rough day at school where you're like, that teacher yells too much?
Yeah, some teacher who kept yelling at us, and I'm like, come on, man, we're just chilling.
That's being a little excessively. Now, this is Harry. Now, does Harry have a specific accent, or is it just generic English?
Just a normal British accent, yeah.
Okay. Right, now, as you know... The first years are just about to enter the room and have gone through a traumatic experience. Several of them have died in the lake and the rest are freezing cold, he said. So please ensure that as they enter Hogwarts for the very first time and make their way on this new journey in life to their new home and this castle, that we make them feel uncomfortable, unwelcome and horrible as possible. I want first years crying home to their mums and begging in complete tears, breaking down, begging their parents not to send him back to school. I want the first years to know what suffering is. Fucking hell. In life, because of all of the suffering I had to do in my youth. Okay, they're entering now. Can we all please laugh at the first years? Now, go on, point and laugh. All right, put a pin in it. If I was a psychologist, if Mrs. Liberale had taken young Mike and I had done a 1-hour assessment with you and I'd read some of your writings, I'm like, I think Mike is being humiliated or bullied at school. I think he's projecting, he's projecting something because this is a fairly sadistic, psychopathic Harry Potter. Like something's happened to you where you have inverted like a childhood hero and turned him into a monster. I would start asking questions about what was going on at home if I was a psychologist or at school. Something's happening.
You must admit, like you said, this is a sadistic thing.
Yeah, really.
You've got a daughter. If your daughter said, hey, the principal of the school did this today,
told us to
pull her out of the school straight away, right?
Yeah, and it's also like his justification, is so sad. Like, I had to suffer, so you'll suffer. It's like he's had how many years? 40 years to go to therapy? 40 years to erasius memorius or something like that.
And he has actually the name of that spell.
Is it really? Yeah. Men in Blackius. Maybe you shouldn't say that.
The neutralizer.
The neutralizer. It's interesting that you as a kid who obviously loved these books and loved Harry Potter decided to take him in this direction. Like, I think maybe it was some kind of you stretching your sort of creative muscles because it makes sense. You're like, well, I'm going to take a beloved character and I think it would be fun to make Harry say and do all the opposite things of what people know this virtuous character to do. I can sort of see that as a kid being fun.
I used to watch a lot of, at this point in my life, I watched a lot of Family Guy. And I think what I liked about that show as a kid was just like characters like Peter Griffin, who were these adults that just showed no responsibility for any of their behaviors and could just get away with doing anything. And I think it's kind of channeling that a little bit as well.
Yeah. Just like morally, like almost sociopathic.
Yeah.
Lack of regard and no filter. Okay.
Yes.
All of the students were laughing half-heartedly because they found it a little uncomfortable and didn't really want to point and laugh at the first years who were clearly very upset and probably regretting coming to this frankly sadistic school. Can you also imagine too that this is actually like one of the Harry Potter books? This is going into production, like what this scene would be like in a movie, especially in a Harry Potter movie. Like Harry Potter is now being played by, I don't know, like Steve Buscemi, and he's up there. Yeah. And, he's saying laugh at them. It'd be like a Lars von Trier film. Like, to imagine, people hate seeing children and animals, endangered on film. Like, imagine seeing these cute little 6-7-year-olds in their little cute little Harry Potter, suit and ties and little shorts. And that everyone kind of like, ha, 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 Yeah. And Harry, laugh at them. I want relive my cruelty, It would be
I want them crying to their parents.
A pretty traumatic experience. Okay. Harry was walking around looking at the students saying things like, laugh harder and point harder. He even slapped one student and said, your laugh sounds like an idiot. Change it. Wow. Wow. Did someone once say that to you? Have you like that? It seems very specific. Your laugh sounds like an idiot. Change it. All right.
This is a dangerous new direction for Harry, for sure.
Harry then approached the first years and slapped... Oh, shit. Harry then approached the first years and slapped each of them in the face in what he called the start of the year slapping ceremony, which he said was a yearly tradition. And you put yearly tradition in inverted commas, suggesting that the author or the narrator doesn't believe Harry Potter. Yeah.
The author is aware that it's not a yearly tradition.
Yeah. Even though no one remembered it ever happening in the past.
And you can just imagine Harry say like, "No, we do this every year, guys. Don't you remember?"
What's it called? The start of the year slapping ceremony. Again,
come on, guys, line up. We'll just do the start of the year slapping ceremony.
I want to see this in a Warner Brothers movie, a PG-rated Warner Brothers movie. Right, now, before we start the sorting ceremony, I would like to remind everyone that Derrick is a disgrace to all wizards, said Harry Potter. Professor Granger, could you kindly begin the sorting? I'm personally going to use this opportunity to head to the bathroom for a quick reliving of my bladder. Again, reliving. But I'm not too interested in this. Professor Granger rolled her eyes and stood up from the sorting hat, which was old, tattered, and seemed to have no interest anymore. It almost seemed as though the sorting hat was being held against its will. I hate this job, the sorting hat said. All I want to do is go relax on the beach in Hawaii. Is that too much to ask for a hat to ask for, is it? One of the teachers said yes, and the sorting hat said, oh, what the fuck is going on here?
Do you know what the sorting hat is?
Yes. Yeah, it's like a witch's hat that can talk.
It's essentially a conscious hat whose life purpose is to sort students into houses. And I guess this is me trying to do some satire in the fact that what if the sorting hat didn't want to sort anymore and just wanted to quit, but Harry clearly won't allow him to do so?
What I'm more interested in is the way the teacher is able to kind of quell it in the same way you might try and calm like a grandparent with Alzheimer's or something who's like, oh, like they're stealing my gold. And you're like, no, they're not, Grandpa. Oh, they're not? Okay. So that's like you've got a senile sorting hat.
A senile old hat.
Yeah. Professor Granger began to call out names of students who were sorted into the various houses. Hufflepuff, it said for... Oh, hang on. Is this the hats talking? Hufflepuff, it said for the girl. Ravenclaw, it said for another girl. Gryffindor, it said for a boy. Slytherin, it said for another boy. Finally, there was only one boy left. Derrick immediately recognized this boy as Motormouth, the boy who accompanied him back at Diagon Alley, who said his dad was the king of Thailand. That was unexpected.
In a previous chapter, Derrick met a boy who said his dad was the king of Thailand, amongst various other big claims about his dad, who may or may not be true. And this character who appeared in that chapter, it seems like we're going to get his name for the first time, but the way this certain character speaks is very much like an Eric Cartman kind of vibe. If you want if you want to influence your performance with that, that's kind of his way of speaking.
Okay. Is this the character we're about to meet now?
No. Yes, it is.
Okay. Dimmy Dimmatina, Professor Granger called, as Motormouth, whose name must have been Dimitri, walked up to the sorting hat chair. He turned around and faced the school, and before sitting down, he began to speak. Okay. First of all, please call me Dimmy, he said. And second of all, I'd just like to say, everyone, it's an absolute pleasure to be here at Hogwarts. I'm really excited for the year ahead, and I can't wait to meet all of you. If you don't know, my dad was actually head boy back in 1624, so I have a long history with Hogwarts. I would have bought my owl Jerry, who's the fastest owl in the world, but I actually didn't find out we could bring pets until yesterday, and because of that, Jerry couldn't come, so sorry about it. And if anyone wanted to meet him, shut the fuck up, said Harry Potter, who had just walked in the door. I'd go and do a shit for 30 minutes, and this sorting still isn't over. Time to sit down, Mr. Dimmatina, said Professor Granger. Okay. Okay, thanks, Professor Granger. You're the best. I love you and Goblet of Fire, by the way.
So, this is a fourth wall breaking moment in which one of the characters in the book refers to another book in the franchise. Yeah. So basically, this is like...
it's Deadpool. You're Deadpool.
Yeah, it's very, very Deadpool. It's basically like if Luke Skywalker goes, Obi-Wan, yes, we met back in A New Hope. It's basically like that happening. No. Which raises a lot of questions about... Are the characters aware that Harry Potter is a book series?
Well, in your fan fiction, clearly, but I don't think J.K. Rowling would probably have the same answer.
Yeah.
Dimmy sat down and the sorting hat was placed on his head. There were 13 minutes of time that passed with the sorting hat on his head trying to make a decision. It seemed hard for it. This is difficult. I've never seen something as challenging, as complex as this sorting I'm about to do. There's something strange about you, Dimmy, the sorting hat said. Dimmy looked shocked and frightened. He quickly chimed in. Okay, I just want you to know, my dad is on the school board, so if you put me in a bad house, there's a huge chance my dad is going to come to school and kick your ass with his karate skills. He definitely only uses them as self-defense, but I'm just warning you, if you don't put me in a good house, he might have to defend me and use karate on you, so just think about that for a sec. The sorting hat was silent. Several students began talking and enjoying the feast, and Harry Potter yelled at them and said, show some respect for the first years who are literally here for the first time. Don't you want them to feel welcome? Or do you want to be a little disrespectful little shit? Which seemed highly strange based on his earlier approach. Okay, so
a total change of pace from Harry there.
Yeah, because Dimmy clearly is like, it's like Rupert Murdoch's son has just started at the school. And he's like, is that what's going on, I'm assuming? Like Harry,
I guess so, yeah.
Harry knows
Some
what side his
famous
bread's
kid's
buttered
son.
on. Yeah.
Yeah.
Or a gangster's son or something like that.
Yeah.
Well, what did he say?
Someone
His
that Harry's
dad knows
scared of.
karate. I mean,
Yeah.
in a world full of wizards and magic, karate like is...
Does
if
karate even exist?
Yeah, I know, but
in
like...
Wizarding World?
Just like, you know, human, like force field surroundy miss or something like that. What do they do, by the way? Like, I've seen clips of Harry Potter where they're shooting wands at each other. So they can shoot energy bolts, right?
Yeah, the movies kind of stylized it like that, where they would just shoot spells out of their wands and they'd connect and stuff. But I think it's a little bit more nuanced in the books. But I think if they did it like that in the movies, it wouldn't have been as visually impressive.
So in the books, they don't shoot like blasts of green energy that knock people down.
No, but the green spell that Voldemort uses that's the Killing Curse. So the Killing Curse specifically is a green spell.
Okay, all
in
right.
colour, yeah.
Okay.
Just a little bit more to go, don't worry.
No, so I just lost where I was at. Where did I?
Oh, right.
I think I bumped my mouse. Okay, you see Dimmy. Okay. Who's talking? The hat?
This is the Sorting Hat again.
Okay. You see, Dimmy, I've only experienced a mind as difficult to sort as your own once before. There are elements of Gryffindor, that's undeniable. There are parts of you that fit Hufflepuff, and other parts seem to be suited to Ravenclaw. And of course, there are some wonderful parts of you that suit Slytherin. But where to put you? Not Slytherin, said Dimmy.
And this is what Harry Potter says this exact same thing to the Sorting Hat in the first book when he's being sorted.
He says
Harry
not
goes,
Slytherin.
not Slytherin.
In his head.
No, out loud. And the Sorting Hat hears him and says, not Slytherin. Yeah.
You don't want to be Slytherin, said the Sorting Hat? No, I really don't mind. I don't really mind. I just remember in the first Harry Potter movie, Harry said not Slytherin, and it made you hurry the fuck up and sort him, said Dimmy. Also, Mr. Sorting Hat, I know we just met, and this is weird, but I forgot what voice I was doing for a second. But I just wanted to let you know, I can totally see heaps of girls having a crush on you. You've got a nice spirit and you dress really well. Ha! Said the Sorting Hat. I've figured it out. Oh, good, said Dimmy. I'm assuming you're going to put me in like Super Gryffindor or Super Ravenclaw or something because I'm so much more talented than everyone and my dad is so cool. Seriously, you should meet him. He's awesome. The Sorting Hat's eyes darted towards the back corner of the room where Derrick sat alone on his table for expelled students. Expelled, said the Sorting Hat. A stunned silence filled the room. No one really cared, but it was still kind of surprising. Derrick was smiling from ear to ear. His first friend, and they were buddies in the same house. Oh, man, you're going to be hearing from my dad, said Dimmy. Respect my authority. As Harry Potter, Professor Finnegan were pulling him away from the Sorting Hat and moving him to the expelled table. I swear, he's going to come and bash you. My dad's a king of England. He'll get you. You might get the death penalty. No girls will have a crush on you. You're unlovable. Again, 13-year-old podcast Mike projecting, if you ask me. If you have a wife, she'll divorce you. She told me she didn't love you. What a fucking little turd. Eric Cartman is right. As the commotion died down, Harry Potter returned to the stand to make announcements about the boys' second year at Hogwarts.
And that is the end of the chapter. Thank you for such an enthusiastic read.
Fuck, man. Thank God it wasn't going on much longer. I don't think I could do Dinny anymore. That really hurts.
So, what do you think? What are your overall thoughts? We're at the end of the chapter. What do you reckon?
Well, firstly, I mean, in all honesty, like if I had just read that, I wouldn't have necessarily thought it was a 13-year-old writing it. Like, it's actually pretty well written. And like you have
spelling mistakes and all.
There's only a few spelling mistakes, but it's kind of like you're playing with sort of not complex, but like sophisticated storytelling techniques, and like breaking the fourth wall, and you're sort of setting up like misdirection, and like Derrick. You think Derrick's going to be expelled, but then you do a little twist where it's Dimmy Dimmatina that gets expelled. So I think there's like some things going on. I think it's actually quite well written.
Oh, thanks.
But
mate.
My bigger question is, like, what was going on with the authority figures in your life at that time? Because you seem to have an enormous distrust of anyone in power, yeah, or just like role models. It's either that, or I think that you just enjoyed being naughty with Harry Potter characters. Like, I get that. I get that as a kid.
It's a good point though, because like, what was it about me that thought, oh, what would be just really funny if Harry Potter, this hero character, just ended up being an abusive, sadistic arsehole. And like I've clearly found it funny as a kid that this teacher would just be abusing his students and like mocking them and berating them and physically abusing them. To me, like, that was the pinnacle of what comedy could be.
But I think that's kind of what comedy is. It's like a subversion of tropes. And, Harry Potter is this, earnest, virtuous character. The funniest thing you could do with him is just, I mean, I did it myself when I was just riffing about him having a midlife crisis.
Yeah.
That was where my comedy instincts went. And you went one further and said, what if he just became like a fucking embittered middle-aged man? So I actually think it's pretty good. I mean, I don't know if I wrote any fan fiction when I was a kid, but I don't think my creative writing would have been on this level. I remember writing a lot more like horror. I was into Stephen King a lot when I was like 12, 13, and I wrote a lot of horror shorts. They were all like shock value about like, the last paragraph would always be, and then they opened the door and the room was filled with blood, and things like that. It was always like some horrific like, and they opened the door and they saw him lying there with an axe in the middle of his head. That was kind of my thing. But how many? So did you say how many book? What book is this? Book of 7.
This is one? Book 2 of 7.
Fucking hell! Wow, you did this in your spare time.
Did you ever watch this movie? You probably didn't, but it was a Disney movie called The Emperor's New Groove. Have you ever seen that? You should watch it eventually. Like when your daughter's like maybe 7 or 8, you should watch it, because it's actually it's got David Spade and John Goodman and Eartha Kitt as the voice actors. And it was this really unique Disney film in the year 2000 that constantly broke the fourth wall, and the characters in the movie were aware of the fact that they were in a movie. And I think it really influenced this kind of thing that I was doing, because it was like, it was one of the first comedy movie. It really was a comedy Disney movie. It's one of the first ones I ever saw, and all littered throughout this book is fourth wall breaches, and I always have loved that mechanic.
I think that is definitely what has influenced you, because that's what I think you do as a kid. It's like, you copy out panels of a comic book, or you copy out, like I used to do 3-strip comics, from the newspaper. I'd sort of redraw them, and that's how you kind of learn jokes and you learn storytelling and stuff like that. And so I reckon definitely that's what you've done here, is you've just gone, okay, I really like that film, where they were being, acknowledging the fact that they were in a film. Yeah. And I'm also going to make Harry Potter like a psychopath who wants children to cry. I mean, what a sad fate for, the boy who lived. Yeah. He actually became the thing that he hated, like hurt people, right?
That's definitely true. He shows it. All right, final question for the pod.
Yeah.
If this book was for sale and was an actual book, do you reckon you'd keep reading after this chapter?
Yeah, absolutely not. No, I can
you just leave
barely keep up with like good writers, let alone this shit. Like, I haven't even read the real Harry Potters. Why would I read a Harry Potter fan fiction with terrible spelling and a psychopathic lead character?
Yeah. Well, thank you so much. We've talked about doing this for ages. Thank you for finally making time. Sorry, now I'm making it sound like you didn't make time to do it. I've been
asking. Believe it or not, I've been asking to come on this show, and you've been fucking ducking me. So I'm glad you finally
coming on when I was finally ready to do it. I appreciate you being available. Do you want to plug all TOEFOP stuff and even the new thing that's happening with
Listener?
Yeah, if you want to talk about that, I don't know.
Yeah, so we so if you want to go to tofop.com, that's a website. So Will Anderson and I have a podcast called TOEFOP. We also do another one called Two Guys, One Cup, which is an AFL podcast, which this year, in exciting news, has moved to the Listener platform. It's going to be exclusively on Listener. And that is great news because it means rather than me trying to produce each episode and, clip it, cut in grabs and all that kind of stuff, we actually have a professional production team who are going to be scouring the footy shows and stuff to grab us. So you should be hearing a much more professional show is what I'm trying to say. But TOEFOP and FOFOP are still on the TOEFOP website. You can also check out Will's other podcast, Willosophy, and I am CX Clausen on Twitter and Charlie_Clausen on Instagram if you want to follow me.
And if you want a really good, if you want a really good extra comedy podcast, I highly recommend TOEFOP. It's really funny, and it's also like you would hear kind of not stuff like this podcast, but you would hear kind of nonsense takes on different pop culture artifacts, which is always pretty enlightening if you're into that kind of thing. And as well as that, I'm assuming we will continue doing that this year, but we put up little clips on YouTube for TOEFOP as well. So if you ever want to if you don't have time to listen to a full podcast, you can go to TOEFOP TV on YouTube and you can just kind of put on a playlist of clips and watch them while you do whatever it is you do at home. I find that's always a good way to catch up on stuff. So go there as well. It's really good stuff.
You're doing a much better job of selling it than I am. I should really get you to do all that.
You're like, I do this podcast. Will does it. No, thank you so much, man. That was hilarious. Thank you.
Awesome. No worries.
This podcast was a Radio Mike original production. Head to radiomike.com.au to check out all our other content, stay up to date at radio.mike on Instagram, and get in touch, radiomikepod@gmail.com.